Hey everybody! A couple of weeks ago I demonstrated using a rotary table on the milling machine and I made this little part. It's actually a replica of this one I made years ago, heat blued and everything, and you'll see it right here on the bass guitar that I put it on. And that thing looks really nice. Well, I wanted my other bass guitar to look just as good. So here we go. The part is actually a little oversized. We see it's 490 thousandths this way, and flip it around and we'll find it's 494. All right, so we're just going to have to take a little bit off. It's got to be 438 thousandths square. Get rid of that rotary table. We don't need it anymore. I use a little clamp there to have something to lift it by. The thing's kind of heavy. It's like 40 pounds. Clean off all the chips before we bring in the vise. Clamp that thing down, and we always have to square up the vise. So we grab a hammer and we use a dial indicator. This time I've got it pretty close. I'm within about a thousandth, and we're making a thumb rest for a bass. We're not making Swiss watches, so we can stick with it the way it is. Let's grab a couple of parallels. These are going to hold the part up in the vise. Clean out any chips that are in the vise. Get those parallels in place. And get our machine started and ready to go. And we'll get the height. I use a little piece of cigarette paper here, and that just helps me to make sure the cutter is right there at the part. And we're going to make a few passes here and get it down to 438 thousandths. All right, it's looking good. And we always take off the burrs. We deburr our parts with a file. This is just standard practice. All right, we do the other side. This is the power feed. And you see it's turning the hand wheel for me, and it gives a very uniform finish when we do this. Not that it really matters, because I'm going to be filing this thing and sanding it smooth anyway. All right, deburr, deburr. And there it is. This is the part ready for filing and sanding. Uh-oh, forgot to put the little holes in it. Okay, we need to get the holes in it. Put a little Dicam on there. Scratch a line. And today I'm going to show you a different way to find the center. Instead of using the wiggler like we did last time, I'm going to use this. This is actually an edge finder. And this is probably the most common tool for locating the part. And you see how the tip moves like that? And mine actually has a little flat on it. Most of them don't. This is a Brown & Sharp one, and that little flat will make a ticking noise when it actually is right at the edge. I don't know if many people know about those, but I like them. See, there it is. You can see how the tip there moves around. It slides, and there's a spring that's holding that flat against the end. And what will happen is, as it's spinning at high speed, when you run it up to the end of your part, it'll run true, then it'll kick out to the side. And the only way to actually describe that is just by showing it in action. So we're going to watch this part as we bring it in. See how it's wobbly? I'm going to crank the y-axis and bring the part a little bit closer, and you'll see it'll start to run. It's running true, and then bang, it kicked out to the left. And we move it back, and we go back in to prove it repeats, and sneak up on it, bang. And I hear the ticking sound, and I also zero out the y-axis. Some guys will do this. They'll pull out and flick it. And then, again, we let it run true, and then it'll kick out to the side. And as soon as it kicks out to the left, you know that you've hit the edge. There it is. The tip of that thing is 200 thousandths. So you know the center of the quill is 100 thousandths from the edge. In this case, we're trying to find the center line. And so the way we do that is we zero the DRO, the display, and we run the edge finder on both sides, which we're doing. We just did it on the back. And then there's a button on the display which says 1/2. And you just hit the half button, and it will actually find the center line of the part without you having to do any of the math. All right, now we have to find the end because we're going to be drilling the holes in it. So same thing, x-axis, look, it just kicked out. And we make sure it repeats. It's running true, kicks out. There, that's the edge. The center line of the quill is now exactly 100 thousandths from the edge of the part, half the width of that tip. And what we do then is we go to the x-axis on the DRO and we dial it in 100 thousandths and then zero it out again. That way we know the quill is right over the edge of the part. And then we can move things around using the numbers on the DRO. And notice that our spotting drill actually landed right on the crosshairs we made when we scribed it. I did the scribe lines more to keep me honest than anything else. The DRO was going to do all the work. Okay, we spot and drill a couple holes. These are going to be for the screws. And this steel is drilling like butter. Either that or I have a really good drill bit. Don't know. A little bit of cutting oil. Do the other end. And it's only taken like 10 seconds to go through that whole part. There we go. And this is the countersink that I'm using. I like these. It's just a funny looking countersink, but it does a really nice job. It's a single flute cutter is what that is. And I had to sneak up on this one because I needed to measure it from how far it was going down to make sure. You see how the screw didn't go in completely there? I had to keep sneaking up on it and then marking the numbers down so that when I did the other end, I would go the exact same depth. And I think we're just about there, just about there. Look at all those chips sticking to it. It's magnetic now. And there we go. Look at how flush that is. That is nice. That's exactly the way we want it. Let me go do the other end. Then I'm taking a file and working on the sides of the part. I'm of the school of thought that you just rub it back and forth on a file. I'm not one of those folks that only goes one direction. And all the edges, I want those edges to be rounded. This is something my thumb is going to be on, so I want them to be very rounded. So I'm using the belt sander to do that. A bit of that. Then a whole lot of sanding later. And I actually sanded the thing. You can see my fingers there. I sanded it to 3000. Still not done. It looks pretty good, but I'm going to give it a little bit more of a shine. Next day, here we are, and we're going to polish it up with diamond polish. And this stuff was super thick. I need to get a new tube of it. But I just put it on paper and do this. And after a while, it really puts a shine on anything because it's diamonds. And here's what the part looks like. There's you can see some lines left from the sanding. Again, this doesn't need to be perfect. You're going to see what we'll do in a minute now. This is what we use. This comes from Cratex, and I'll insert something here or showing it from the vendor. You can get it from Brownells. You can get it from Cratex. It is an abrasive stick, and you just run it in a drill press or in the milling machine, and it makes a little swirl. Then you move it over. I move it over one full swirl width. So It turns out that that is 2 cranks on the milling machine. So I crank it twice on the X, then I do a swirly for maybe 5 seconds, then I give it another 2 cranks, give it a swirl, 1, 2, swirl, 1, 2, and then do another swirl. I get a file out and occasionally dress up the end of that thing, because it does start spreading out. Here we are, we're doing a few more. And look at that, we've got the first side done. It's not absolutely perfect, but we're pretty close to it here, so if you're a few feet away, it's going to look super amazing. And we're doing the second side. Something that you have to take into account is that notice how it spreads out when you press it down. It does look like an elephant foot kind of thing. And that's what I'm using the file to try to counteract, but that's one of the things that's not too precise about the size of these. The little swirls can be a little bit larger, a little bit skinnier. Now, something else I'm going to show you is when I get to the end of the row, I have to change the y-axis. So I go all the way back and I give the y-axis 2 cranks, but then, so here we are, y-axis 1, 2, and then we go back to the x-axis and we give it 1 crank so that we're offset. You have to make sure that for every row on the x-axis, you offset by 1 when you start it, so that they have this really neat orderly look where the rows, each row starts half of a swirl over from the prior row. And here's the finished product compared to the original painted brass one that I used as a model. And let's put it on. This is my fretless precision bass. Now that actually is sort of a bit of a misnomer or a paradox. Precision bass is called a precision bass because it has frets. So how can you have a fretless precision bass? Well, I've got one. And here's my new thumb rest, replacing the old chromed one that I had on it years ago. And let's see if we can do this. And sometime after this video, I'm actually going to have to spray lacquer on that part because it's steel. It's going to rust in 2 seconds. So this is just for show. I'm going to take it off. I'm going to spray it with lacquer. But doesn't that thing look nice? Now I have a thumb rest to be proud of that's matching the other bass with the blued steel one. Thank you for watching. Have an excellent day.